that would lead me to be more cautious, thinking that we could see some further downside after a bounce here. A lot of people were surprised when Bitcoin went below the 19.5-ish 2017 high. But if you understand how markets work, they tend to just go a little bit beyond key levels because there's a lot of stops put there. They need to run those stops. They have to get the maximum people bearish before the bounce can occur. So we saw, for instance, some bankruptcies, Celsius, Voyager, and some other situations as well that were really adding to that bearish sentiment. And that kind of led right into this bounce in the near term. And I still think the market has more upside in Bitcoin. So for me, the first target I have on the upside in the near term is that this pivot low, which was the Terra Luna low, that's probably a near-term resistance level, right? We got close. We got within about $1,000, little over $1,000 away from that. But I still think that will get hit after such a dramatic move up in Bitcoin, where you went almost straight from 19,000 to 24. It makes a lot of technical sense why price needs to pause, have a little bit of a pullback. We heard from Elon Musk yesterday with Tesla that Tesla sold 75% of its Bitcoin. Again, I don't think that was anything other than Elon Musk trying to just pare back some risk, but a lot of people that'll be used as a reason to sell their Bitcoin as well, since he has so many followers. So again, very just normal kind of pullback here. I do think there's another move up. If we take out this 25.5-ish area, then I think your next stop is all the lows from this area. This is going to be an epically big resistance level, right? So I can put a trend line right through there. And what you can also see here is that one of the things in technical analysis, and I know you know this, Steve, is that when you have a confluence of trend lines kind of converging, that's going to be a bigger resistance level in this case than one trend line. And so what you can see here is if you connect the high from 2021, November, and the high here, that trend line is getting very close to this area here. So my thought process is that I'm pretty certain, I would say 70-80% sure that we'll see the 25.5. I think there's probably a 60 to 70% chance we'll get up to 28 and change here. But this is kind of my zone of where I think Bitcoin stalls out before the next leg lower. And again, I know people don't want to hear that. I don't blame them, but I do still think there is one more leg lower to flush out a lot of people that think the lows are in here. And again, the thinking isn't just pure, it's not just pure, me guessing at it. The thought process here, for me at least, is that the measured move has not been completed, right? So if we take this high to this low, and then you see how the beautiful kind of channel, we had this beautiful parallel channel created. And then if you take that distance and you replicate it here from this high, it actually takes us down to about 12 to 13,000. 12 to 13,000 also happens to be this pivot over here, right in this zone, as well as this area right down here as well. So right kind of in this groove. So that's kind of part of the reasoning. I also think that I worry that we haven't seen enough hardship in the crypto sector. So one of the things that I pay attention to is, seeing Voyager, seeing Celsius. I mean, those are things that naturally have to occur. But I still think that you haven't seen enough of it. It bothers me that Michael Saylor, there hasn't been, it got down to 21,000. He then said, oh, my level's much, much lower. The markets almost tend to kind of squeeze those people. And it doesn't seem like MicroStrategy has been squeezed yet, or some of these other players out as well. And I still think there's far too many cryptocurrencies for a healthy market. So I'm a huge long-term bull on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I think it's the wave of the future, just like the internet was. But we haven't fully seen the internet collapse that we saw in 2000 replicated in crypto just yet. So again, those are some of the little key pivot points that I'm looking at. So for me, I'm looking at more of a 12, 13,000 ultimate bottom on Bitcoin. I also think that if you compare Bitcoin and say, okay, Bitcoin is the Amazon.com of its era, right? So, monster company now, but in 2000, it was a smallish company, not the size of Bitcoin, obviously, but it was kind of that leader. And we saw Amazon collapse actually 95% from its highs in the .com collapse, and Bitcoin hasn't even done 80% to 85, which is its normal cycle correction. So for me, I look at that, and then just to throw in one more thing, and then I'll throw the mic back to you, is that we've seen a lot of this kind of bloodletting going on, but I don't think we've seen all-out panic. And again, if anything, this crypto correction should be more substantial than past ones because the Fed is not printing money anymore. And this is the first time in Bitcoin's lifespan where the Fed has not been printing a ton of money. So that would lead me to be more cautious, thinking that we could see some further downside after a bounce here. Just the fact that the Fed is being more aggressive to fight inflation. So anyways, I love the fact that we have slightly differing opinions. I think that's very helpful to everyone. I've always said since we were at 69, 68,000 is that there would be a time where I start accumulating a HODL position, right? And so what I did was, and this goes to your point too, is like, I don't know where the low is going to be. Maybe it is the low. It's very, very possible that the low is already in. And so what I did was when we got to 19,000, I started what I would consider to be a 1/6 position of what I want to accumulate of my HODL position. So again, if you think about it, let's say $120,000 is what I want to HODL on Bitcoin. I put in 20,000 at 19,000, and I'm just going to leave that there because if this is the bottom and we go to 100 to 500, I do want to have exposure. And I think we're low enough when we got below 20 where it's smart to, even if it goes to 12, if you're in at like 19, 18, 20, it's not that big of a deal versus if you're in at 65,000. Then it's like major pain, especially if you're in that dollar cost averaging mode, like what I'm looking to do. So I think that's important. And I would say that that's kind of the attitude I would tell people that are kind of mid to long term to have, is that in the scheme of things, you're going to look back on this and say, oh, what did it matter if I bought at 20 or 18 or 16 or even 12? At this stage, when it's 500,000, you're just like, this is awesome. So I think that's the important thing to kind of take away from it. Do you really want to pay up that amount? And then also kind of juxtapose that with the emotion and say, wait a minute, everyone's too bullish. Pull yourself back and say, wait a minute, this looks extended to me. How much higher can it go before it just naturally has a pullback? And then maybe at that point, that's a buying opportunity and reevaluate it there. But I think the charts are just so honest in terms of looking at it. And I always use this analogy of saying, if I go to the mall 1 week and I'm like, oh, I need a new pair of jeans, and 1 week that those jeans are $100, and then I go back the next week and I'm like, those same jeans are $200. I don't say to myself, oh my gosh, now I really have to buy it and maybe buy like 5 pair at $200. I say, wait a minute. Maybe next week they'll go on sale again and I'll buy it at 100 again, right? And yet for some reason, investors are like, wait, the higher it goes, the more I want to get in. And you have to recognize that. You have to use the same kind of thought process when you go to the mall or you go to the supermarket where you're looking for sales, right? Discounts. That's the same mentality to apply to stocks and crypto and all those things.